Hi folks, and welcome to Friday, January 22nd, 2021. And if you're new here, this is Cord Cutting Weekly, where we round up all the top headlines from the past week in cord cutting and streaming news. And this week we're going to talk about Netflix's latest subscriber numbers, a launch date for Paramount Plus, some new streaming options coming to Pluto TV, and more. But yes, if you haven't done so already, please do consider clicking those like and subscribe buttons down below. You'd be joining a great community, and you'd also be helping us produce more and better content for the future. And with that plea out of the way, let's get into the news, starting with Netflix. So this week, Netflix announced its fourth quarter 2020 earnings and shared that it had added around 8.5 million subscribers in Q4. In all, that brings the streaming service to around 200 million subscribers overall. And if you look back at the past year, you'll see that Netflix added around 37 million paid members over the course of 2020 and brought in about $24 billion in revenue. Of course, the ongoing pandemic has played a major role in the company's growth last year, but some analysts figure the streaming service will continue growing in 2021. The streaming service landscape is definitely more competitive these days, thanks in part to major players like Disney growing at a rapid pace, which is why Netflix has put so much emphasis on new and original content. In any case, we'll of course continue to track Netflix's growth here in 2021 and beyond. Should be an interesting year. Meanwhile, in other Netflix news, it looks like we're finally going to see an official shuffle feature on the streaming service. Variety reported on the news this week based on comments made during the company's quarterly earnings call. Details are still forthcoming, but it looks like we'll finally see the shuffle feature sometime this year. Now, we've seen hints of this feature coming to Netflix recently in the form of tests that have been conducted over the past few months. Back in August of 2020, we reported on the feature undergoing tests with some users seeing a shuffle play button under their user icon. That version of the feature would play something that particular user might enjoy. And even earlier, we saw the company testing out a shuffle option within TV shows where you picked a show and could opt for a random episode to stream. As for what the final ready for prime time version of the shuffle feature will look like or how it will behave, that remains to be seen, but we'll keep an eye out and let you know when we find out more. In free streaming news, Pluto TV has a pair of new channels for you to check out. The Viacom CBS-owned free streaming service is adding BBC Food and BBC Home to its lineup, and you should be able to check out either option right now, actually. BBC Food, as you might have guessed, focuses on the kitchen and features some well-known chefs and personalities. Meanwhile, BBC Home covers home remodeling and garden renovation with some British style. The service also announced some upcoming documentaries, including A Life Too Short and My Father the Mover. Both of those should be available starting today, January 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern. Speaking of free streaming services, STIRR, that's STIRR, announced that it's added 6 more cities to its lineup of STIRR City channels. Now, those options offer up local news, weather, sports, and event programming, and with these latest additions, that brings the service's total up to 79 cities across the U.S. And for those new cities, here's a quick list. You can see some pretty large markets in here, again, spread around the country, including Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Milwaukee. And in case you're wondering, no, you don't have to live in any particular city to see that content. If you live in, say, Seattle, but want to check out what's happening in Raleigh, North Carolina, by all means. You can check out the full lineup of STIRR City channels over on the service's website or through their app. And as expected, 2021 will get at least one more streaming service with Plus in its name, as Paramount Plus is expected to launch this March, Thursday, March 4th to be precise. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with this ongoing story, Paramount Plus will be the new name for a revamped and rebranded CBS All Access, which currently offers classic content and brand new shows like Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. Here in the U.S., Paramount Plus is set to go live again on March 4th, 2021, and those in Latin America and Canada will also get the service on the same day. And you can check out more about the company's international launch plans in the post link down below in the video description. And parent company Viacom CBS is expected to discuss more details about the rebranding effort during its earnings call scheduled for February 24th. So stay tuned for more info. Over on Disney+, the highly anticipated WandaVision finally debuted on the streaming service on January 15th and was reportedly viewed by around 1.6 million households in its first weekend. And like The Mandalorian before it, Disney will be releasing new episodes on a weekly basis. So with the first 2 episodes making their debut on day 1, episode 3 should be available right about now actually, and the season 1 finale is scheduled to go live on March 5th. And if you checked out the show's first 2 episodes, let us know what you think so far in the comment section down below. But do mind the spoilers, please. We'd appreciate it. Thanks. In high-powered hardware news, a group set out to test the power consumption of the latest crop of gaming consoles and came back with some interesting findings. Now, to be clear, we're talking about the recently released Xbox Series S and Series X from Microsoft and the 2 editions of Sony PlayStation 5, one with a 4K Blu-ray disc drive on board and one without. And the group, called the Natural Resources Defense Council, found that these new consoles, unsurprisingly, use up a lot of juice when playing current generation games. But thanks to energy efficiency improvements, they can actually run older games from previous console generations while consuming less energy than the consoles they replaced. And on the streaming service side, we've covered how these latest gaming rigs are more than powerful enough to serve as streaming devices, and you can check out our own video on the subject in the post link down below in the video description. In any case, the group discovered that these new consoles can consume 10 to 25 times more energy running apps like Netflix or Disney Plus compared to dedicated streaming devices from Roku, Amazon, Google, and more. And in the case of the PS5 at least, it still doesn't support 4K playback via the Disney Plus app. So yes, these latest consoles may be impressively versatile, but they may not be the most ideal or energy efficient way to binge watch your favorite shows. And in ISP news this week, we learned that Charter has withdrawn its request for permission to implement data caps on its Spectrum Internet service plans. We reported back in July of last year that the company was looking to lift a requirement of its merger with Time Warner that prohibited the company from instituting data caps on its customers. Well, here we are now in January of 2021, and Charter has decided to withdraw its request, and it did so with a one-page document saying that it simply withdraws its petition. Of course, we'll keep an eye out in case this isn't actually the end of the saga, but for now at least, Spectrum users worried about the possibility of pending data caps can rest a bit easier. And so there you go. Those were some of the top stories in streaming and cord cutting this week, and thanks as always for tuning in. And yes, if this happened to be your first time visiting our channel, we'd certainly love it if you stayed a while and maybe click those like and subscribe buttons. On Wednesdays, Jess hosts our live Q&A sessions, and then on Thursdays, we dive deep into specific topics like this week's tour of Amazon's new Fire TV user interface. Your first clue that something's different is the new startup animation, actually. It kind of serves as your first hint that Amazon's aiming for some visual overhauls in this latest update. And once you do get to the main menu itself, it's pretty obvious Amazon was aiming to freshen things up a bit. And then we wrap up the week right here on Cord Cutting Weekly. And speaking of Cord Cutting Weekly, just a quick programming note that I will actually be out next Friday, but keep an eye out for the YouTube community post as we'll make sure to gather up all the cord cutting and streaming news for you in lieu of our regular video. For now though, thank you all so much for tuning in. My name is Philip Palermo. Have a great weekend. Take care.